Hi everyone, welcome back to the Australian Rotary Health podcast called The Research Behind Lift the Lid. I'm Jessica Cooper, and on episode 36, I will be having a chat with Professor Sonja March from the University of Southern Queensland. Sonja received a mental health research grant from Australian Rotary Health from 2018 to 2019 for her project called Improving Efficiency of Online Cognitive Behavioural Therapy for Childhood Anxiety through video conferencing and stepped care. Sonja is a professor of psychology in the School of Psychology and Counselling and the mental health theme lead for the USQ Centre for Health Research. Professor March's research focuses on how to improve health outcomes by enhancing the efficiency of health systems and optimising individual health behaviours to engage with these health systems. Specifically, her research examines innovative solutions for mental health, such as digital assessments, online interventions, and e-health within the context of child and adolescent anxiety, depression, and general well-being. Sonja also examines the application of such approaches within vulnerable populations, such as regional communities and at-risk cancer populations. So welcome to our podcast today, Sonja. It's great to have you here. How's everything been going for you, especially in Queensland with all the lockdowns at the moment?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Jessica. Thank you for having me. All going well here. Thank you.
That's good to hear. Well, I'm very excited to talk to you about your research findings today from your mental health research grant project, which looked at online CBT intervention for children with anxiety. I know that COVID-19 was very unexpected and really disrupted the way that we deliver some psychological interventions. Would you say that your program came at a good time?
Yeah, look, our program Brave Online has been around for quite some time now, but the fact that it's freely available to all Australian young people certainly was beneficial during COVID. And overall, I'd say we saw probably about a 30 to 40% increase in our registrations from young people and parents over 2020. And in that week, that really memorable week that homeschooling started, our registration spiked by about 400%. Oh, so there was certainly a lot of young people and parents who were all of a sudden finding those changes that came with lockdown quite difficult to manage. And I know I certainly understand, having been one of those parents who had a child at home all of a sudden doing schooling. So yeah, it certainly has been, I think, helpful for a lot of families.
Yeah, well, it is really good that a program like this is available for people. If you know, something like COVID happens, it's good that it was already there and set up. I guess, could we maybe start today by telling us a bit about the aims of your mental health research grant project?
Sure. So in this mental health research grant project, we were really interested in whether we could enhance the clinical efficiency of our online anxiety program, Brave. So we started out by knowing that our full therapist-assisted model of Brave is really quite effective. So when we deliver it with minimal therapist assistance, but it's pretty difficult to deliver that across Australia to large numbers of young people, just because it's difficult to find therapists and it's the cost associated with that. So we also have a self-help version, and we know that can reach thousands of young people at any time. But sometimes young people struggle to complete the program and therefore obtain the benefits. So we were really interested in whether we could create a new model of Brave that tapped into that reach of self-help, but integrated the features and clinical benefits of therapist assistance where it was needed. So specifically, this project aimed to test a new model, Brave Stepped Care, that started young people off with the self-help program where they completed the first 5 sessions on their own, and then stepped them up to receive video conferencing therapist support, but only if they needed it. So it tried to save that therapist contact via video conferencing for those who needed it most. And what's really novel about this study as well is that we've never tested our online program before or delivered it with video conferencing at all. So that was also quite new for us. And we were really looking forward to seeing how the young people responded to therapist support delivered in that way.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting way of delivering the program. I guess what kind of findings came out of this? Like, how did people receive this?
Well, so we tested it, the model through a non-inferiority trial, which is kind of just a fancy way of saying that we were, trying to show that the step care model was not inferior to the therapist-assisted model. And we recruited 137 children and adolescents with an anxiety disorder, and we randomised them to Brave Step Care, or our gold standard Brave therapist-assisted program. And in that therapist-assisted program, participants received 10 sessions of our online program with 15 minutes of video conferencing support each week. And in the step care condition, they first completed 5 sessions on their own, and then we tested their anxiety levels. If they'd shown a substantial response, then we let them keep going. But if they hadn't, or they'd really struggled to engage in the program, then we stepped them up to that video conferencing support. So they kept doing the online sessions, but we gave them that extra video conferencing support. And we tested their diagnostic and symptom improvement before treatment to after treatment, and 6 months later. So what we found was quite interesting. So first, we found that of the people who were in the stepped care treatment, 60% of them needed to be stepped up. So there was 60% who just hadn't quite responded enough, and we thought, you know what, they need a little bit of extra support. So they ended up receiving therapist support. We'd kind of predicted around 50%, so we weren't too far off. And 40% had shown good enough progress on their own and shown enough reduction in their anxiety that they could keep going with the self-help program. So that's really good. Second, young people who received the therapist-assisted program from the beginning, they did complete more sessions than those in the step care condition. So we started noticing from the beginning that, those who received the therapist support right from the beginning, they were more likely to go on and do more sessions and therefore, complete the program. Now, where we looked at the diagnostic outcomes, that's where it got really interesting. So immediately following treatment, when we look at those who completed the assessments, about 54% of participants in the stepped care condition and 68% of participants in the therapist-assisted condition were free of their primary anxiety diagnosis. Now, that wasn't statistically different. So they're statistically the same, but there is a little bit of a trend there for them to be different. So what this is saying is that between half and 2/3 of participants were free of their primary anxiety condition immediately after receiving either step care or therapist-assisted models of Brave. That's pretty good. But there's always a but. By 6-month follow-up, we had 88% of participants in our therapist-assisted condition, so those who received it from the beginning, 88% were free of their primary anxiety disorder. Now, this was statistically higher than our 66% of young people from the step care condition who'd lost their primary diagnosis. So overall, what our results are showing is that the step care model is producing some really good results. And in fact, they're not too dissimilar to what we saw in our normal therapist-assisted model from our previous trials, where we delivered the therapist assistance via email support. So that's really exciting, and that's showing that step care is working. But it was a little bit unexpected for us to find that video conferencing had such a high rate of response. So in fact, we've never seen that in any of our previous studies. So we've never sort of gotten higher than about a 78% high response rate. So video conferencing seemed to produce a really high rate of response, which is really exciting. And then I think just the final result that was really important to point out is, whilst we did see some good outcomes with step care, satisfaction with the step care program wasn't quite as high as with the full therapist-assisted program when we used video conferencing. So it was still acceptable to young people, but satisfaction and adherence was definitely a little bit higher in the therapist-assisted model.
Yeah, that's certainly very interesting. And I guess, there were those kind of mixed results. Do you think that maybe stepped care is something that you would continue with for other interventions or, further research on this?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely want to continue looking at it, because I think what it shows for us is that it definitely has potential. And for us, we sort of think that, there's never a one size fits all. And there's never circumstances under which, you can always provide only one option. So unfortunately, the way our health system works, you just can't always provide therapist support to everyone. And you also can't always provide it at every time point that is possibly needed. So there will always be circumstances under which people are waiting for therapist support and, waiting unnecessarily, I think. And I think that's the time where a step care model could come in very handy. And the evidence is showing that it can be very useful. And there's always that weighing up of, is it better to be waiting and getting worse than to be using a model that actually does work quite well and could be doing a lot of good? So I think that, for us, the next steps would be to start looking at new models that integrate some of these findings. And I'd like to, look at maybe models that step down rather than step up, or models that start to integrate the choice of young people and parents. Certainly some of our findings were, even when we wanted to suggest to people that they should step up, some young people didn't want to step up, and vice versa. So perhaps we need to start researching ways to integrate the choice of the clinician and the young person into these models as well.
Yeah. Well, it definitely sounds like it's a good thing to have, different options for different people. And, the stepped care model might suit some and it might not suit others. But like as you said before, having something in the meantime when they don't have that access to a therapist, that could be really helpful. So that's great. I guess, would you say that these findings might have some real world impacts for children who may be experiencing anxiety?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, our program is certainly up and running in a self-help format, but I think that, there would be potential here for health systems to take these sort of programs that exist and use them, now that they have this evidence, to use them in step care models now within routine care. So I think there's a time and place now to look at these findings and integrate them into routine care settings. So, there's a lot of situations in which current practitioners can't afford to support their clients on a weekly basis, or even, like the wait lists that we were talking about just before. And they might now be able to say, hey, perhaps they can use these online programs and I can support them in this way. So I think that the results of this step care model can certainly provide useful frameworks and models for our routine care settings as well.
Yeah. And so you said before that the BRAVE program is already up and running online for people to access. Where might they be able to access? And in terms of the stepped care program, is that available now as well?
So Brave Self-Help is available. If anyone wants to use it, they can simply type into Google or any search browser Brave Self-Help. That's the quickest and easiest way to find it. The step care model is only available through research, and the pure reason for that is because of the cost associated with therapist care. So, we're open to finding partners to help us make that available through routine care settings. But certainly, they can access the self-help program at the moment just by searching Brave Self-Help online. And we're very open to partners in terms of trying to make that available in other ways.
Yeah, so that's something that you're probably working on at the moment, like in terms of a future direction for this research.
Absolutely. Trying to find different ways to use the program, integrate health practitioners, and let people access it in different ways.
It definitely sounds really like beneficial for people. It sounds like it really reduces some of those anxiety symptoms for young people. So it sounds like it'd be very, very helpful.
I hope so.
Yeah. As a researcher, I guess you'd be very familiar with the competitive process of applying for grants so that your research can continue. I guess for our Rotary audience, who are really the heroes behind Australian Rotary Health funding, can you explain how important funding is, particularly in the mental health research field?
The funding from Australian Rotary Health is so important to us. It's so important to the young people who use our program, our students working on these projects, and the Australian community. And without it, we just wouldn't be able to build these new treatment programs. We wouldn't be able to show that they work, and we wouldn't be able to fight and advocate for them to be included in routine healthcare. And for that, we are just so grateful and thankful on behalf of all the consumers as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's great to have researchers out there like you who are doing, this very important work as well. So, yeah, I think maybe not many people know that, yeah, there is this research that goes behind all of the treatments and interventions for mental health. So, yeah, it is very important. I guess, would you also say that funding into children's mental health research is maybe an area that requires more attention than it's already getting?
Look, I'm probably a bit biased, but 100%. You've heard it all before, children are our future, all of that kind of thing. We know that, 50% of adult mental health problems start, before the age of 14. So important that we set children on the right trajectory in life. And to do that, we need to set them up with the right skills to manage any hurdles that they might face and challenges that they might come across. And I think what's really important to acknowledge is that these challenges and hurdles that they're facing are just constantly changing. And funding is so important and always going to be needed to address that. And, even though we might find solutions to one problem, the problems are constantly changing, and we're constantly learning new ways to help children overcome these. And so, it isn't about finding a magic pill or anything like that. It's about us as researchers working with children to help them become stronger and better placed to manage all of those changes as they happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, there's really no one approach for everyone, as you said before. So yeah, it's good to look at all those different options. Well, it has been really great to talk to you about your research today. And it's obviously, it's really looked at a new way of hopefully helping people who are unable to kind of access that, help with a psychologist. So it sounds like it's been really good. And I guess before we wrap up today, was there anything that you'd like to add?
Oh, just thank you again to Australian Rotary Health, all the members and everyone that contributed and donated to the funding, and also to all the children and families who participated in our study.
Okay, well, excellent. Well, thanks again, Sonja.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
That was the 36th episode of our podcast called The Research Behind Lift the Lid. It's always so inspiring to hear what researchers in Australia are doing to make a difference to mental health, and how they are helping us on our mission to lift the lid on mental illness. If you can, please support important mental health research like Sonja's by donating on the Australian Rotary Health website. Thank you for listening. Please join us again next time.